Well, I think globally, it's probably not actually about economics, it's about politics, and it's about what's happening in America, so with Donald Trump. And I think the really interesting thing there to keep an eye on is how difficult he's going to find it to get his policy agenda through. You would have imagined, he's a Republican, or notionally he's a Republican, and then both houses of Congress are dominated by Republicans as well. You would have thought that this, of all times in the US political cycle, is the moment when policy would be enacted sort of very ambitiously. Actually, what we see is gridlock in the manner that we've seen in the US when the administration and Congress have been held by different parties. What's going on there, and it's actually less to do with Donald Trump than you might expect. I think the really interesting thing is the divisions internally within the whole of the Republican Party. So if you look at the House within Congress, the House of Representatives, wide variety of views within the Republican Party. They don't even agree amongst themselves. That makes it very difficult for them to get legislation passed. And so what we anticipate going forwards is that actually a lot of Donald Trump's policy agenda will not be enacted, despite the fact on the face of it he appears to have a very commanding position politically within the US Constitution. So that's one area where I think the surprise is going to be how little the US policy agenda actually gets enacted. I think the other thing to look for is what's happening here in China. And at the moment, of course, well, we've mentioned already that the government has been steadily tightening policy. It's trying to take a bit of heat out of the property market, for example, and clearly policymakers here are concerned about the build-up of debt that we see, particularly corporate debt, but also debt in regional government as well. But at the moment, I think policymakers are reluctant to do very much about that in the run-up to the 19th Plenum. I think the interesting thing to watch is what happens afterwards. So after the 19th Plenum, we anticipate that policy tightening will become a bit more ambitious, that the government will be more aggressive in trying to deal with the debt build-up that it sees. And so our expectation is that China in 2018 will grow quite a bit more slowly than it's been growing in the last few years, as the government starts to really try and get to grips with that debt problem. Now, we don't expect there to be a crisis. We don't expect there to be a hard landing. We do expect this to be very controlled and managed. They want less debt, and a side effect of that is that the economy will grow more slowly. And I think after the 19th Plenum, they will be prepared to make that trade-off.